Disclaimer: the following story is a fan-based fan fiction. Any characters present are not owned nor claimed ownership by the writer in current. These characters, situations, and plots are being borrowed for the entertainment of viewers like you. If this author claims ownership of these characters, the thick finger of the law will be up his ass. Please support the official releases tilde. Just because of Ubuntu. Bam. Time slowed down dynamically as Ryuga had his arms crossed before his face, blocking the mighty frontal roundhouse kick from the silver-haired girl floating in front of him. Gritting his teeth as he contemplates how things had come to this, he still does not understand how suddenly everybody started attacking him and themselves, just like an all-out free-for-all brawl, and he just wanted a simple bento to eat. This must be all Ranma's fault. It all started 20 minutes earlier. "Where the hell am I now?" was his usual cry as the Narmer wrecking crew's eternally lost boy wandered once more without a direct aim going. Ryuga looked around, scanning his surroundings. He stopped suddenly as he found himself in the middle of a hall in a convenience store. Blinking a couple of times, pondering how the hell he ended up in such a place without him noticing, he decides to take the chance and resupply his backpack. Looking down at himself as his stomach gives a protest, he decided to also get something to eat, given that he hasn't gotten a decent meal in a long while. Regarding popular belief, if he concentrates enough he can manage to get somewhere in a critical moment if it's a very short distance. Really? You don't believe it? Then how come he had managed to find himself in certain areas he wanted to be at a time, like let's say when Shampoo's first arrival into the Tendo home, he changed from pig to himself to tease Ranma about the kiss of death, and managed to find the living room where everybody had gathered. That and other events later in his life, when Ranma is concerned. Going back to his primal objective, he claimed how lucky he was as he was close to a tray that sells bento boxes. Inserting his hands in his pockets looking for his pouch for cash, he reviewed how much he had left and saw if he had enough. Sighing, he could just buy one box. Oh well, better something than nothing. He began to walk towards his objective, but suddenly stopped. There was something wrong. His eyes scanned his surroundings as he began to feel the tension and aura of people around him in the halls. Something was fishy and he didn't like it. However, his thoughts were interrupted as an old man walked out from a dual door in the back of the store. Curiosity got the best of him and he waited and saw what was that about. Maybe the man was going to restock? Ryuga shrugged. It would not make a difference since he only can buy one box anyways. He observed as the man stopped before the few boxes left. He had nothing in his hands except some sheets of paper or something. He observed the man work and stuck something in the boxes. Ryuga resumed his walk towards the man. He didn't want to get in the way of the man's work. He'll just get a box and get out. As Ryuga was closing by, the man finished whatever he was doing and began to walk away, throwing a glance at him. Was that a smirk or a look of pity? Ryuga raised an eyebrow as he watched the man walk away, then returned his stare back to the boxes. He stopped. What the he thought? 50% off. Ryuga mentally cheered. With that discount he could manage to buy 2 boxes. He raised his hand and was about to grab his choices when suddenly his instincts alerted him of danger. With swiftness he avoided an air kick meant to him. Time slowed down as he took out his umbrella and parried the kick away, pushing his assaulter. Ryuga frowned and looked at the young man that attacked him and pointed his umbrella at him. I don't know who you are and why you attacked me, but I assure you that if you want to fight me, you're making a big mistake. Ryuga was going to store his umbrella back and continue his objective when the young man stood up in a jump and yelled as he attacked once more. Not only that, his eyes opened like wide plates as not only him, but other people came out from the halls screaming like wild animals. Ryuga grunted and took a defensive stance. Where the hell did he end up? He couldn't have ended up in one of those zombie cities like those pop culture American movies, right? Right? He definitely didn't want to be a zombie. This has to be Ranma's fault, somehow. Ryuga dodged a kick here and a fist there. He avoided a sweep kick and parried a broom. These people weren't zombies, then why would people want to attack him? He really didn't understand what was going on, but he definitely wasn't going to let himself be beaten. Well, if these people wanted to fight, then he wasn't going to back down. Ryuga threw his umbrella into the air as a fist came at him. He stopped dead, locking the fist with his left hand, and smirked as his assaulter's face became an expression of shock. In slow motion, he crouched and sent a side kick straight into the guy's stomach, knocking his air out. Said guy was sent flying backwards and rolled a couple of times before ending in the wall limp. Scanning his surroundings, he could observe that not only people were attacking him, but they were also fighting among themselves, while trying to reach for the rack with the lunch boxes. Realization came to him. These people were fighting to get the bentus. Wow, talk about saving money. Well, he wasn't one to back out. Ranma would laugh at him if he did. No one was going between him and the only dinner he had in a while. Smirking, Ryaga spun his umbrella like a sword and jumped into the air. With a battle yell, he came falling in the middle of the group, crashing in the flock, umbrellas tip first. The impact force was so great that people were sent flying by the shockwave. Time slows down as people floated in the air, and then faster than slow-mo, Ryaga pulled his weapon and swung it, hitting everybody close to his arc. Slow-mo off. Everybody was sent flying back by his attack. Not waiting for another second, Ryaga ran towards the bento racks, punching and kicking everybody in his way. Extending his hand towards the deliciousness of food in a box, his hopes crashed as his hand was parried aside. He narrowed his eyes in anger and glared at the one responsible for his hunger to persist. It seems like a high school boy dressed in martial arts clothing. He had some skill at least. Storing back his umbrella, Ryaga spun the parried hand again, trying to grab the box, but his effort was for naught as the boy once more parried him. Then the fight switched into an exchange of kung fu-like hand grapples and techniques as Ryaga tries to brush off his opponent. Come on, Ryaga, why are you hesitating? This is just a kid who's not as good as Ranma. Hell, even Akane could beat this guy. Rising up a notch, Ryaga's speed rose slowly and the guy began to worry, as he couldn't match the strikes. The eternally lost boy broke through the guy's defenses and did a 1-2-3 hit combo, finishing with a sidekick, knocking him out. Smirking triumphantly, he scanned his surroundings, and it seems that others were already out of the brawl. He didn't beat that many people, they must have knocked themselves out. Oh well, he wasn't one to complain about it, so he turned once more toward the racks to claim his prize. But just when he was about to grab a box, his sense of danger flared. He could only turn in time and raise his arms across his face to block a flying front roundhouse. And here we are, back to the beginning. Ryaga gritted his teeth. This new attacker had skill. He could see around the corner of his arm's silver-colored hair. With a loud grunt, he pushed his attacker back. Said attacker somersaulted back and landed a couple of feet away from him. Now he could see clearly. He was surprised to see that it was a silver-haired girl in high school uniform. His eyes narrowed. This girl was good. Her guard had almost no openings. This could be fun. Both fighters glared down at each other, studying their defenses. The other people who were defeated and not out cold began to stand back up to watch the spectacle. This new guy that appeared out of nowhere was good, really good. He didn't look fatigued nor that had broken a sweat, and now he was facing against the strongest wolf in the Bento brawl, the Hyaoketsu no Majo Ice Witch herself. This was going to be one of the best fights in the Bento brawl history. Even the staff came out to watch this spectacle. Ryaga smirked furiously. With a humph, he began to store back his umbrella and unload his backpack, letting it go with a huge bang when it hit the floor. People looked at it surprised and wondering what things might be inside. Not minding people's stares, the eternally lost boy took a stance, ready for a good fight. Both combatants glared at each other, then suddenly disappeared. Time slows down as the dynamic view of them flying towards each other with right fist raised can be seen. Bam! Senyor's US fist met a block from Ryaga's left arm and blocked in the last second his punch. Her eyes grew. She had to admit that she didn't expect him to be this good. No one had given her this much ordeal lately, and she was beginning to grow scared and excited at the same time. Both combatants entered in a phase of blow exchange as they began fighting all around. Spectators screamed in shock and fear and tried to avoid the fighters as they seemed not to care where they landed in their all-out match. Ryaga crouched and threw a front sweep, but said kick was avoided by the Ice Witch as she jumps and counters with an axe kick. Ryaga dodged it to the left with ease and rolled back up a couple of feet away. He took a couple of his bandanas and threw them like boomerangs toward the silver-haired Ice Witch. Said girl's eyes opened wide and jumped sideways to avoid them. Time slow-mo as the bandanas flew one by one up and below her as she spins slowly in the air, avoiding it matrix-like. As she lands back on her feet, time resumes normally as she dashes forward. Two can play that game. She executed a slide kick, gaining momentum in her dash to slide towards Ryaga. The latter made a backflip, avoiding but couldn't reach in time as Sen grabbed a couple of cans lying on the floor and threw them at him. Ryaga met a can in the face, which made him lose balance, then tried to block and dodge other projectiles meant to him, while he protested. Growling in anger, the eternally lost boy sidestepped and then jumped in the air. The silver-haired witch narrowed her eyes and prepared to avoid any attacks he'll throw. However, her shock grew as the boy in yellow threw his finger forward and yelled Bakusai Tenketsu. She jumped sideways in time when he fell almost on top of her, but seconds later she had to cross her arms in front of her face as an explosion of dust and debris blew out of the area he was in. The force made her lose balance, and she crashed hard into the floor, rolling a couple of times until she stopped. She tried to sit back up, eyes wide open and trembling, as she stared at the dust cloud that was beginning to settle. Who the hell was this guy? She never saw anything like this. Is he even human? Her eyes narrowed as she saw a silhouette walking out of the dust cloud. Ryaga walked slowly and settled outside the setting cloud of dust with a big smirk on his face. He could see it in the girl's eyes, the doubt and fear. Preparing once more, Ryaga dashed forward, finger extended, and yelled once more his cry, Bakusai Tenketsu. Sen Yuzuri reacted in time and rolled out of the way as another explosion bursted out, this time provoking cries and screams from people in general. A massive panic came from everybody as people ran wild trying to get away from the lunatic terrorist which converted the daily brawl into a death game. As some of the spectators began calling for help and the police, the ice witch rolled back and kneeled, while leaning against a rack of food, narrowing her eyes towards her opponent, waiting for him to walk out of the dust. This fight was getting too dangerous and she hated it. This was not just the daily sportsman brawl that she usually comes to compete with everyone on getting the half-price delicious meals. This guy was seriously trying to kill her, and she was going to stop him. The question was how. Nevertheless, this guy was going off the rules and she needed to do something before someone would get seriously hurt. She slowly stood up and readied himself when a glow flicked from the dust cloud. As the cloud settled, Ryaga was smirking madly and a green aura was surrounding him. Sen flinched and took a step back. This was getting too insane. You are good, he said, but not good enough. I'll finish this now. The ice witch lowered her head, her eyes narrowing thin. The eternally lost boy spread his legs and raised his arms forward parallel to each other. Then from his hands a green glow began to flick out. Sen's eyes once more opened wide in shock. No way, just no way. This has to be a dream, no a nightmare. No human can create light out of his or her hands. As Ryaga was preparing to shoot a nerfed version of the Shishihakoden, he didn't want to kill her, of course. Sen decided that this was too much out of whack. She spun around and dashed away, fleeing. Ryaga stood there dumbfounded. He blinked a couple of times trying to comprehend what just happened. Then he closed his eyes as his anger began to grow. Trembling, he grunts, "Grrr, what?" He opened his eyes in a glare as his fangs showed up from his tantrum. What the hell? How dare you run away from a fight? Come back here and take your punishment. Ryaga sprung in pursuit. He stopped at the exit, standing in the front street, as people and police began to gather in front of the convenience store. He looked left and right and took a random direction. And they never saw him again. That night, the news reported the incident and named it the worst and dangerous street fight in the history of the city. Then Bentu brawl began to dim as rules and screenings were beginning to take place for participants to avoid another nutjob to intrude and cause another incident once more. End. Author's notes. Another simple yet good idea to begin another chain of fix. Bentu, although a new series, is a really awesome one and concentrates on street fights inside a convenience store, the price being the half-price discount of lunch boxes. It is a perfect set for Ranma1/2 crossovers, since it involves many styles of martial arts and street brawls. I hope you people liked this. I feel good that I began writing again. Well, see you in my next project. Later.